As some of you may already know, the Hague Conference is the Hague Conference on Private International Law, which I'm going to focus on, is an intergovernmental organization whose purpose is to work towards the progressive unification of the rules of private international law. It deals with areas such as commercial or family law, and has developed several important international conventions, such as the Convention on Inter-Country Adoption, the most well-known of these conventions. In 2011 and 2012, the Permanent Bureau, well, the Secretariat of the Hague Conference, responding to a concern of the Council on General Affairs and Politics, equivalent of the General Assembly of the Conference, initiated work on transnational surrogacy. It issued reports in which it recognized transnational surrogacy as a globalized market. Nonetheless, it focused on problems faced by the so-called intended parents, the commission parents, for the recognition of legal parentage in cross-border situations, especially when they live in countries that prohibit surrogacy or which regulate it in a more strict way than the country of birth of the child. In 2015, following a proposal of the Permanent Bureau, a group of experts was set up to examine a possible international instrument to facilitate the recognition of legal parentage established as a result of transnational surrogacy arrangement, which would include maybe regulatory mechanism and so-called minimum standards. In its preparatory work, the Permanent Bureau consulted the member states, legal practitioners, health professionals, and surrogacy agencies, but did not seek to consult civil society more widely in an open manner, or at least human rights organizations. From the outset, therefore, the approach has been biased in favor of market players. The expert group, which was composed from delegates from 23 member states, plus the EU, which is a member of the conference, met every year between 2016 and 2022. In 2023, it was transformed into a working group where all countries could send delegates tasked with drawing up an international instrument. There are, in fact, two proposed instruments: a convention on the mutual recognition of legal parentage in general, I mean excluding surrogacy, and a specific protocol on transnational surrogacy arrangements. Draft provision for such instruments have been circulated within the experts group since at least 2022. The new group has already met in November 2023 and will meet again from 8 to 12 April. That means next week, on Monday. And the aim of such instruments is very clearly formulated. It is to provide greater predictability, certainty, and continuity of legal parentage in international situations involving surrogacy. This means giving full effect to the surrogacy arrangements, even when the commissioning parents are nationals of states that prohibit the practice on a national level due to public policy considerations. That are the cases where there is a problem of parentage. This is the only situation where there is the problem for the parents. The question of whether the so-called minimum standards should be a condition for recognition of parentage is not clearly answered at this stage. Some say don't want to that such standards, which are really minimum, as we saw, be a reason for refusal automatically. Not to talk about the content of such standards. At this stage, minimum standards, we saw, do not exclude commercial surrogacy. From the outset, the Permanent Bureau and the heads of the experts group adopted a biased approach favoring the point of view of those who take advantage of international surrogacy. It hired a consultant, a lawyer active in transnational surrogacy, who therefore represents the interests of the so-called intended parents and of the industry. Moreover, the draft instrument we have seen, were not published, do not rule out commercial surrogacy, taking advantage argument of the fiction developed by the so-called Verona principles, according to which commercial surrogacy might not be the sale of a child, provided that the payments relate to gestional services and not to the transfer of the child. As if we could pay for gestional services, and then when the child is born, the child is given for free. The Permanent Bureau and the Council on General Affairs indicate that in relation to surrogacy, arrangements should not be understood as supporting or opposing surrogacy, but as soon as an international legal instrument, be it binding or not, would seek to organize the legal effects of such arrangements on an international level, with or without minimum standards, that would have the effect of facilitating and legitimizing the practice. Moreover, it would encourage all member states to accept international surrogacy, even if they prohibit surrogacy in their national law. Even if states do not sign or ratify the protocol, if such protocol is adopted, a legitimizing effect would occur as soon as there is international law regulating surrogacy. That is why the promoters of surrogacy put high hope for such instrument. It's therefore of first importance that no instrument of this nature should be adopted. Action has been undertaken since 2015 in order to oppose the approach adopted by the Hague Conference. In 2015, already, our collective drafted a legal argumentation document aimed at demonstrating that surrogacy is contrary to a number of international human rights protection instruments and inconsistent with the Convention on Intercountry Adoption that prohibits payments. The document requested the Hague Conference to abandon this project and called for the negotiation within the framework of the United Nations of a convention to abolish surrogacy worldwide. It was signed by a large number of feminist organizations from various European countries at the beginning. It was sent to the Permanent Bureau of the Hague Conference with a request that it be circulated to the member states. This paper did not respond to any request from the Permanent Bureau, so we tried to force the door open, which was very difficult. At least it was circulated. I won't go into the details, but we have kept trying before every meeting of this expert group. Since then, the cooperation between feminist associations to oppose surrogacy has continued on various occasions. A call for a global ban on surrogacy has been signed in September 2018 by several hundred women's rights organizations from 18 countries. Following this initiative, an international coalition for the abolition of substitute motherhood was created in 2018, which I am not representing here, but of which our collective is a member. To date, it brings together around 50 feminist associations from all continents around the world. 50. Since then, the new organization has been taking several actions to stop the project of the Hague Conference and to promote the abolition of surrogacy on an international level. In October 2020, the coalition published a fairly comprehensive draft convention on the abolition of surrogacy based on the model of the Anti-Trafficking Convention. The chosen option was to draw inspiration from the most recent instruments and to combine in the text the principle of prohibition with specific provision on criminalization and international cooperation. It was aimed to demonstrate that it is possible to draft a convention, a precise convention. This draft instrument has been sent to the Hague Conference group of experts so that they can take account of an abolitionist perspective, which is not a conservative one. I mean, to be progressive doesn't mean to be in favor of exploitation or commodification of anybody. It was also sent to the delegates of the member states. At the same time, a call to stop the draft regulation of surrogacy and in favor of its abolition, signed by 280 organizations from 56 countries, was published in November 2020. The idea was also to remind the public, the Permanent Bureau, and the member states that the solution was not the regulation of the market based on exploitation, as a regulated trade is still trade, but a global ban of the practice. In September 2022, a critical analysis of the draft protocol circulated by the group within the group of experts, but not publicly, was put online. Feminist associations regularly called for a halt to any attempt to legalize surrogacy on a worldwide basis. Recently, an appeal to this effect was signed by 60 organizations in October 2023. A feminist demonstration was organized in front of the Hague Conference headquarters during the meeting of the working group. Representatives of the demonstrators were received by the General Secretary of the Hague Conference and given the opportunity to state their position. Action is also being taken to try to bring the abolitionist voice to the attention of the authorities representing the member states at the Hague Conference. The coalition also wrote to all the member states of the Hague Conference and to the Permanent Bureau to defend the abolitionist point of view. At this stage, the actions undertaken have made it possible to inform the Hague Conference that there is an international feminist movement in favor of banning surrogacy, and that this movement is growing. This is a very positive first step. But it has not yet been possible to change course. The supporters of the project are very determined. It's difficult to know how the member states will behave within the conference, whether in the working group or in the Council on General Affairs and Policy. Often, they are in fact indifferent to what is going on, so that work continues by inertia, like it's sometimes the case in international organizations. Some states that prohibit surrogacy at a domestic level may also be satisfied with a kind of hypocrisy and be quite happy to accept transnational surrogacy, including for the benefit of their own nationals. Others are represented by experts who express in The Hague an opinion that is contrary to those of their own government, despite the fact that the Council on General Affairs and Policy encourages state members to designate delegates who can speak to the policy views of their states, and not from their personal opinion. The current stage of the discussion is quite dangerous, but may also be an opportunity to get things moving. Indeed, it's not longer just a question of letting soporific meeting reports accumulate. The working group is requested by the Council on General Affairs and Policy to develop provision for a draft instrument. The member states will have to decide whether to accept such provision or not, and to accept such instrument or not. It is therefore very important to demand clear answers from the government on their position within the Hague Conference and the role they see themselves playing in the preparatory work. It is crucial to demand liability on our governments, awareness and responsibility on the consequences of any international instrument at the national level. This can be done by writing to the ministers concerned and or by meeting the competent persons within the ministries, or any person who is representing a member state within the committee, sometimes university professors. Those requests and meetings are very useful because they give the opportunity to express our views and try to convince. Nevertheless, it is often difficult to get clear answers when you meet with government departments, except the rare cases where the governments have clear views on the issue. Public servants cannot give precise answers when they have not instructions to do so. One possible course of action is therefore to go through members of national parliaments who can publicly question governments in ways that are specific to each constitutional system. In France, for example, there is a system of written and oral questions to the government in each chamber of parliament. The member of government concerned must respond either in writing or in which case the question and answer are published, or orally during the sitting, bearing in mind that the sessions are broadcasted. As regards the specific case of member states of the European Union, it should not be forgotten that the European Union is a member of the Hague Conference. Although questions of parentage are a matter for national law, the European Commission seems to be seeking to coordinate the position of its member states within the Hague Conference, taking argument of the principle of loyal cooperation. It is sometimes an excuse for member states not to express any opinion. We must therefore not neglect to act at a European Union level, bearing in mind that the European Commission is generally in favor of mutual recognitions and supports the Hague process. This can be done by various ways, for example, by approaching the Commission or raising the awareness of members of Parliament, of European Parliament, on all political sides. Asking them, for example, to put written or oral questions relating to the EU's position at the Hague Conference. See Article 230 of the TFEU. Citizens may also individually or collectively submit petitions to the European Parliament on matters of union law, of direct interest to them. These petitions may be forwarded by the Petitions Committee to the institutions for response. For example, this right was used by the coalition on the issue of mutual recognition within the EU, the so-called parentage certificate. That petition received a response from the Commission. It's also crucial to continue to inform the public about what is happening and what is at stake, both on the progress on current projects and on the answers received to questions asked when they are of a public nature. I'm not talking here about informal exchanges, which are also very useful when they are possible. It's crucial to convince the institutions and the citizens about the dead ends of regulation and that there is another path, which is a global ban on surrogacy. It is feasible. It is a question of will and courage. Thank you.